So let's check some of the reasons why your motorcycle engine might be overheating. Usually the engine, when it overheats or is losing some of the coolant, coolant is a liquid, I'm talking about the liquid cooled engines. So there might be reasons why you are losing some of those liquid. So in this video we're going to check some of those reasons why you might be losing some of the coolant. So pay attention and let's walk through. So number one, just check the coolant level before you ride. For example, here you can see that is the coolant level on my machine. Is okay. It's a good habit actually to check it occasionally before you go to long ride. Number two, you have to check your hose pipes. These are the link between your radiator and your engine. For example, some of these, if the motorcycle is too old or is exposed for long exposure in sun rays or in the sun, if you keep it outside, they might get brittle sometime. So if they get brittle, your motorcycle might even leak some coolant without you knowing. Yeah, so this one might become brittle, and then it means they can have some little cracks. It's very rare actually to happen for that, but when it happens, it means you might be losing some coolant. So number two, that you have to check these hose pipes, and if they are well fastened, for example using these clamps, you can check the clamps. This is well tightened, so you are not losing anything here when the engine is running. Number three, you have to check the water pump. As you can see here, for example, this is the radiator, and here is a hose pipe which links between the radiator, which is a storage for coolant, and this hose links the engine and the radiator. But when the coolant goes to the engine, it passes through in this place. Actually, I didn't open it, but here there is a water pump. Water pump is the one which circulates the coolant. So it rotates with the rotation of the engine, and actually it pushes the coolant within the engine. So if this water pump is bad, it means the coolant is not rotating through the engine. So if your motorcycle is overheating so much, it means you might have a bad water pump. So unfortunately I couldn't open this one for now, but there is some kind of a gear which rotates, and it pushes the coolant within the engine so that it rotates with the rotation of the engine. So if this water pump is bad, it means you have to replace it so that your motorcycle, you fix the coolant problem with your motorcycle. Number four, head gasket. Head gasket plays a major role in separating the coolant and the other engine components. So it means if your head gasket is blown, it means maybe it has cracks or it is overheated. It doesn't function properly. It means your motorcycle is going to lose some coolant, because the coolant will be burned with the engine heat. It means it is not protected from the engine heat. So one of the functions of the head gasket is to separate, to make sure that the coolant doesn't go to the head gasket, to the other engine component. It also means it protects your motorcycle from burning that coolant which is circulates, because the coolant actually circulates within the holes of the head of the engine. So when the gasket is blown or is bad, it means the coolant is not protected. Once it comes into contact with the heat, it means the coolant is going to be lost. So each time you ride and you find that you are losing coolant, and you open the radiator, you find that there is no coolant, the problem might be that the head gasket is bad, so that it is burning the coolant with it. Number five, cooling fan. Cooling fan is very, very, very important. For example, when this one is a, here there is a radiator fan, which actually helps to circulate the air between the radiators, so that the coolant doesn't get so much hot. So when this fan doesn't function properly, or maybe we'll talk about that. So if it doesn't function properly, or you put the wrong fan in radiator, it means it is not cooling the radiators or the coolant properly. There is no air circulation which cools the coolant. It means your motorcycle is going to overheat and the coolant is going to be lost, or it's going to overflow. So you are going to lose some coolant. So make sure you have a good radiator fan. For example, this is a computer fan. This is a computer fan. One time I tried to forge it and put in a motorcycle, but actually it doesn't function properly. So it doesn't cool the engine as required. Because, for example, this is the fan which is original came with my motorcycle, you see. So until you have the original fan, or the fan which is properly as recommended by the manufacturer, you're going to lose some coolant. So make sure you have proper fan which cools the coolant, so that your motorcycle is not overboiling, it's not overheating, and you are not consequently losing some coolant with it. So radiator fan is very important. Reason number 6, if your motorcycle is losing some coolant, in each radiator we have something called thermostat. Thermostat is actually the switch which operates on temperatures. So when the temperature gets hot, that switch actually is activated. There are some kind of resistors which resistance decreases with increasing temperatures. So when the coolant gets very hot, it means it activates the thermostat, and the thermostat switches the fan to rotate. So it means if you have bad thermostat, or the wrong one, for example, because these ones are usually rated with temperatures. For example, you can find that this one maybe operates on 85 degrees centigrade, but the other thermostat might be operating at 120 degrees centigrade. So if you have a wrong thermostat, it means for example, if it switches on higher temperatures, and your motorcycle actually requires that the lower temperature thermostat, it means your motorcycle is going to overheat because you are using the wrong thermostat. It means the fan is going to come on after the engine is very, very hot. So make sure that you have the correct thermostat which switches the engine earlier, so that the air gets circulated in the engine and you doesn't lose some coolant, and consequently the motorcycle doesn't overheat. So this is very, very important. Some people actually, what they do when they have wrong thermostat, they connect this direct to the fan. It means when you switch on the engine, the fan is usually running. The problem is that it usually overdraws or puts so much load on your battery, so it drains the battery very early. And the other problem is that usually these thermostats, they have multiple functions. For example, one of the job is to delay so that the engine gets very hot or optimal temperature, so that the oil is operating properly. You know, the motorcycle, when it was coming from cold, it means this one doesn't, it delays a little bit, so that when the temperature is up in an optimal way, and then it switches on, which is good for engine, because you can't be revving the engine while the temperature is very low. Reason number 7, using wrong coolant. For example, I have two sources of coolant. For example, this is a cheap coolant, as you can see here, and this one is actually expensive one, and usually this is a very good one. So the difference between this one and this one, usually actually, for example, this is manufactured locally. So what they do, you might find that this has a lower boiling point. It means it boils at lower temperatures, and this one boils at higher temperatures. So what it means is that when this one with low temperature boils, for example, when the engine is maybe 120 degrees centigrade, it means it is going to overflow because it is getting hotter before even the engine is not so much hot, so it is not cooling the engine properly. But when you have the higher boiling point coolant, it means it delays its boiling point until the engine is so much hot. So suppose this one is maybe 130 or 150 degrees centigrade. It means when the engine is at 100 degree, the coolant is like, okay, maybe it is 50% cooler than this one, because this one boils at lower temperatures. So make sure you have the correct rated coolant, because these are very critical. You can't just put some cheap stuff on your engine and expect it to function properly. So make sure that you invest a little bit, you buy the proper coolant, and then put it so that your motorcycle doesn't overheat. Reason number 8 why your machine might be overheating. This comes from oil filters. So sometimes what happens is that when your oil filter is bad, or yeah, actually it's bad, maybe used multiple times. So what happens is that the oil is not circulating properly on your engine. So if it is not circulating properly, it means the engine is going to overheat, because some of the components are missing the oil to be cooled. So a lot of friction is going on within the engine. So a lot of heat is being generated without the proper lubricant. So make sure that you have the proper oil filter, and the one which is recently changed, or usually it's like just changes the oil filters after maybe 1 or 2 oil changes. That is a good habit to have. So sometimes your engine might be overheating because you are extending or you are overusing the oil filters, or since these oil filters usually collect some of the engine component or some dust, because they function actually to remove dust within the oil. So if this one is clogged, it means the oil is not circulating properly within the engine. So make sure that you periodically change the oil filter so that your engine's oil circulates properly, so that the engine doesn't overheat and you don't have the coolant problems. Reason number 9 why your engine might be overheating. For example, I have 2 bottles here for engine oil. All of them, they are 4-stroke engines. 4-stroke, this is 4-stroke motor oil, and the other one is 4-stroke oil too. This is 4-stroke. But the problem is that when you check the rating, this is 20W50 and this one is 10W50. You see? So they have different viscosity. But for racing machines, most racing engines, they usually either 10W50 or some other lower number. So when you put on your wrong engine oil type, for example, when you put 20W50 on your racing machine, it means the engine is not going to be cooled properly, because the viscosity of this engine is very high. This engine will require, you have to make sure that you use the proper rated engine oil so that your engine doesn't overheat. Some people usually they don't care about the engine oil types, which means they just put any kind of oil on their engine. But the problem with that approach is that you're killing your machine, you're killing your engine. Sometimes the engine is overheating because you are using just the wrong engine type. 11. Why your motorcycle or your engine is overheating or is losing some coolant. Check this. For example, here I have 2 radiator caps. Let me show you. I have 2 radiator caps. This one, when you check it properly, you can see that there is 1.4, and this one has been rated 2.0. So what does this mean? These numbers actually, they means pressure bars. Pressure is usually rated in bars or some others, but when you say this is 1.4 bar, it means low pressure. So it means this cap will open at 1.4 pressure, and this cap will open at a pressure of 2.0. So it means this one will open at a higher pressure than this one, which is 1.4. So what does it mean? It means if you have some coolant within your engine and the pressure becomes very high and it reaches 1.4, it means this cap is going to open it's going to open the radiator, so the coolant will come out, will overflow, will come out for overflow. But if you are using this, it means when the engine is 1.4, it means this one is going to delay, even though the pressure is 1.4, because it is rated higher number. It means the coolant is not going to overflow because the pressure is not yet 2.0. So until the pressure reaches 2.0, then the overflow will allow, the cap will allow for overflow for the coolant to come out to balance the pressure. So what does it mean? It means if you're using this one, you're going to lose the coolant earlier when the engine is maybe has some kind of pressure 1.4, but this one will going to prevent it losing until it is reached 2.0. So choosing the right cap for pressure cap for radiator is very, very important. I'm talking about this because sometimes the engine is not so much hot, but you're using the wrong radiator cap, so you are going to lose some coolant. So make sure you have the proper radiator cap to prevent losing coolant. Reason number 12. While we are still on the radiator caps, sometimes these radiator caps are usually they have some seals. They have seal in this one. You see this seal. So when these seals overheated or become bad, it means it doesn't do its job. So, for example, this one, it became bad. As you can see here, it is already damaged. So it means it's not doing its job because it is not going to prevent the coolant from overleaking. The coolant is always going to overleak because this seal is already damaged. So make sure that your radiator caps have proper seals and is functioning properly. So for example, this one, I tried to forge it, but when the coolant becomes very hot, usually this deforms and they become damaged. So this is very, very important. Make sure that the radiator caps the seals are properly and they are rated as recommended by the engine manufacturer. So to sum up, these are some of the few reasons why you might be losing some coolant or your engine is overheating on a motorcycle. So let me mention one of the very important things. Sometimes the engine overheat even though all these things are proper. For example, you might have a better radiator cap, you are using the right coolant, you have very nice fan, and then you are using the right oil for the engine, but still the motorcycle overheats. It might happen when you are riding the motorcycle very, very slow in tight, for example in a high traffic. Usually you are going extremely very slow. So if the traffic is not moving at all, just switch off the engine, so that when the traffic becomes moving, then you start the engine and you don't have overheat. So if there is no any necessity for going on very, very slow speed, just go outside and then switch off the engine, and when the traffic is moving, just switch on the engine. Usually these machines, high racing machines, they don't like slow speeds because there is no air which is flowing properly. So sometimes you might be doing the right thing, you have proper oil, you have proper radiator cap, your fan is working, oil filters are okay, everything is okay, but we are moving extremely slow, so it means the engine is going to overheat because of slow speed. So what you can do on very high traffic which is not moving at all, or for example, yeah, you just switch off the engine, and when the traffic is moving, you can just start the machine and start moving again. So those are my few tips. If you find out these tips are very, very important for you, you can subscribe so that we can grow our audience. And yeah, let's meet on another one. Thank you.